If you're just tuning in, we have been watching former President Donald Trump, who is speaking at a rally in Madison Square Garden in New York City. Thousands and thousands of people there. We have heard, by all accounts from our reporters who cover Trump rallies day in, day out, that this is the darkest rhetoric they have heard coming from this event tonight. Trump, who we have just gone through with Kristen, Holmes, and Alex Thompson, fact-checking a number of falsehoods that he has centered around immigration. And we also have heard from people who came before him on the stage and were cheered by that crowd. They called Vice President Harris the Antichrist, the devil. They railed against what they called effing illegals. This is some of what we have heard out of Madison Square Garden tonight. And of course, former president is still going. I want to go back to Kristen Holmes, who's inside. Kristen, we dipped out of the speech for a little bit. What more has he been saying?
I don't know.
Look, right now he's giving his general talking points, and a lot of it is I'm just on here. He's using the word nasty, so I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about because I wanted to hear if he was referring to Kamala Harris or not, because that's not a word he often uses, but it doesn't sound like it. He has been using the same rhetoric that he often does. As you noted, there is a very heavy focus on immigration. Unsurprisingly, Donald Trump believes that dark, fear-based rhetoric around immigration is what helped get him into the White House in 2016, and he believes that it could help him again in 2024. Now, right now, he is talking about former First Lady Melania Trump. He is giving her a shout out. Just a reminder, she spoke tonight. This is the first time she has gotten up on the stage in any campaign event this cycle and actually spoken. She didn't attend either of the debates that he was at. She attended the RNC but did not speak. And the only other campaign event she has been at was at Mar-a-Lago, which is her home, when he announced his president's candidacy back in November of 2022. So she has been barely visible this campaign cycle, but she was on the stage again tonight. But overall, what we're hearing is a reprise of all of his greatest hits. He talks about the economy. He talks about tariffs. We fact-checked that. We talk about immigration. He clearly is doubling down on that fear-based dark rhetoric. This is something he believes is going to help him, propel him to the White House again in November. This is him on display. I think Alex said this. He is putting on a show right now. And one of the things I had heard before he came here was that he wanted to give the people a show, that's part of his idea for Madison Square Garden. One of the things that his team was saying was that Donald Trump is playing the garden, which is a typical, colloquial way of saying someone is at the Madison Square Garden, but they're treating him like he's a celebrity and this is his big performance. He's clearly now talking about his family, talking about how they're all involved in politics, talking about how helpful they've been, but most of this is a normal campaign speech for him, just ramped up on steroids, given the fact that he is here taking the stage at this giant venue. And again, I just really can't stress enough that even though we are talking about how dark, how divisive, how polarizing these comments can be and fear-based, the crowd is loving it. They are standing up. They are giving him different applause lines at various times, standing ovations at various times. They are receiving the information that he is putting out there. And as Alex said, we don't know if this is going to go further than just his base, but it does feel to the Trump team, who I've talked to on the ground here, that they are gaining some momentum while Donald Trump continues to use this kind of rhetoric on the campaign trail. So it doesn't seem as though he's going to dial it back or change any of his messaging in these final days before the campaign.
Yeah, and what's amazing too, Kristen, is that we've fact-checked a number of things that he has said, but if you're an American and your media diet is very narrow and you don't seek out the fact check, you don't seek out the truth, then this worldview can feel very real. And clearly there's so many in that in Madison Square Garden right now who feel that way and who only know what they are being told. I also thought it was interesting. He did touch, when we were listening on Generals John Kelly and Milley Mattis. He called them stupid and weak. Of course, Kelly and Milley just this week were talking about how they believe Trump is a fascist. What more have you heard about that?
Yeah, and Mattis said he would agree with anything that John Kelly said. This is clearly three people who have spoken out against Donald Trump. It's unsurprising that he would call them stupid. He has name-called them before. He has been increasingly angry, particularly at General Milley and General Kelly, John Kelly. I mean, this is something we have seen now for several months. The campaign doesn't believe that this is going to impact them at all. They don't believe these kind of comments have impacted them. They'd say that John Kelly has already spoken out against Donald Trump. But you can tell that it's gotten underneath Donald Trump's skin. The fact that he's bringing it up at this rally, the fact that he's bringing up the two of them saying that they were stupid, that they made bad decisions, clearly goes to show that the fact that they have spoken out against him is getting underneath his skin here. It's something that's not that surprising given the fact that Donald Trump is known to have thin skin.
Right. All right. Kristen, I want you to stand by. We do have Priscilla Alvarez, who is joining us by phone. And Priscilla has been with Vice President Kamala Harris all day in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. Priscilla, are you there?
I am. Hi, Jessica.
Hi. I just want to get your sense from what you're hearing from the Harris campaign as this is unfolding, because clearly they are watching this to see what happens. And Harris will say often, I invite you to watch Donald Trump's rallies and see what he says. And we have, as Kristen just described, a rally that has his rhetoric and this dark rhetoric that we hear, but it is on steroids. So what is the Harris campaign seeing, and what are they taking away from this?
Well, and it's not only that the vice president has told people to watch the former president's rallies to see what he's about, but rather I have been to a rally of hers rather recently where she played clips of the former president talking about, for example, his enemy from within comments. So she has invited that into her own rallies to make her point that it is the former president using what she has described as the same tired playbook. Now, that is much of the response that we are getting tonight as well from campaign officials, from Democratic officials who are watching this, and they are seeing it as fear-mongering. They're seeing it as the former president using, again, the playbook that he has used before when running back in 2016 or in 2020. But this is also part of the strategy that is starting to come together in the closing days of the vice president's campaign. For example, the vice president has recently been using a line where she says that the former president is consumed by what she has called as the, quote, enemies list versus her to-do list. So they are casting a picture of the former president as obsessed with revenge, plotting revenge in the Oval Office. And rallies like tonight and the former president's rhetoric tonight play into what the vice president, her campaign, have been saying, that he is consumed by his own troubles or issues with, for example, some of his former officials, be it John Kelly, who called him a fascist. Now, in terms of immigration, that has been a political vulnerability for the vice president and for the president for some time now. In fact, it was political vulnerability with Republicans who had attacked the administration repeatedly over the last several years. But it also became an issue with Democrats amid the record number of people crossing the U.S.-Mexico border and then going to these Democratic cities. It also raised alarm among people within the Democratic Party. So it not only became a Republican issue, but a Democratic issue as well. And that has been something that they have had to navigate. Now, the vice president, when again presented with this, has called for two things: border security. In fact, she has leaned even harder on that as of late, while also saying that there should be, for example, a pathway to citizenship for immigrants, trying to strike a balance here. And so this dark rhetoric from the former president is in some ways a problem for this administration and this campaign, knowing, of course, that there have been border crises over the last 3 years and that they have struggled and to grapple with those crises. But when pressed on this, the campaign will often say that this is just the former president resorting to his fear-mongering. So certainly they are seeing it that way. And we have to keep an eye out now for these next several days, including Tuesday, where we anticipate the vice president's closing arguments at the Ellipse, and that is where I'm told we'll see more of this dark, or rather, we'll see more from the vice president on the stark contrast between her and the former president, notably with the White House behind her, and notably, of course, where the former president delivered his speech on January 6th that then led to the attack on the Capitol. So all of this to say is that they are watching this closely. This is the type of rhetoric that they warn about when the vice president talks about the stakes of the election. And Jessica, as we talked about earlier today, what was also interesting about the vice president's remarks here in crucial battleground Pennsylvania is that she didn't mention the former president, but she talked about the broader tent that they are building, because what they're seeing and what their hope is that there are Republicans who are watching tonight who are turned off by what the former president is saying, and that those are the votes that they can try to peel off from the former president. So certainly all of this expected to certainly be featured or at least accounted for as the vice president closes out this presidential election.
All right, Priscilla Alvarez, thank you very much for that reporting.